Allora, buongiorno, buonasera, benvenuti amici, come state? State bene? Io sto benissimo, benissimo. I'm having fountain pen therapy. Welcome, my friends. It's my channel. It's therapy. It's what it's all about. For those of you who are joining, welcome. For the first time, welcome. For those of you who have already joined me before, welcome again. And I have another pen review for you, folks. This time, again, you'll remember that, went on vacation. Before I did, I ordered a bunch of pens. After I came back, I've ordered a bunch of pens, and I'm getting them a little bit at a time. And I figured I wanted to use them a little bit just to get a feel for them before I reviewed. And now I'm reviewing them consecutively, and there are a bunch of Chinese pens, as it turns out. And today I have for you the review of the Majohn A1 Clipless matte black. An interesting pen. I've got some, very, very interesting comments and suggestions for you. So please stay tuned. We'll go to my overhead camera and commence our review. Okay, so we're back with the pen. I'm going to start out with just a quick unboxing. I normally, when I order Chinese pens, they always give you a choice, or most of the time anyway, they give you a choice of whether or not you want to buy with the box or without the box. And, given that I don't think that in the future I will be selling any of these, low-cost pens that cost me $10, $15, I just don't think that I'm going to be in the resale market. And thus I don't really need the box. I do keep the boxes of some of the more expensive pens, so should I ever want to resell, I could resell them with the original packaging. But I did want to order this one with the box, just because I was curious to see what the box looked like. And here it is. So you could see the Majohn has kind of improved their, or Moonman has kind of improved their boxes. I like this one. It's a little classier, if you will. It's got some oomph to it, as they say. Inside, there is a brief, annual teaching you a little bit about the filling systems. I got to tell you, I try to make heads or tails, not the clearest in the world, but nonetheless, you do have some indication there. It does come with various things that we'll get into, and there's the pen. So that's the box. So just give me a few seconds, we'll set it up, and I'll show you what came with the pen, and we will start the actual review. Thank you. Okay, we're back. So here's the pen, and before we get into the nitty-gritties, I did want to show you what it came with. Now, how this pen works, and we'll get to that right away. This way we'll be able to cover some of these parts that are in that box. Well, first of all, here's the interior of the pen, and as you can see, the pen comes with a converter, and it also comes with the possibility of using a cartridge system. And when you use the cartridge system, they provided these two empty cartridges, which is very nice because you can fill them. Okay, and it does have a cap that you can cap it with. And once you insert the cartridge inside, you use this cap over. Now, you would have to remove that, and then you would... No, I'm sorry. It's the other way. The cap goes this way. Okay, you remove the cap, you insert it with the ink, and then you put the cap over it. So the cap serves as a hard base for the clicking mechanism. So that's how that works. And I did want to show you that. So that's very nice of them. I mean, two of these cartridges plus the mechanism plus a converter, and the filling mechanism, of course, is on the inside. So we'll get to the inside mechanism in a second. I do have some comments to make in that regard. But let's go back to the pen. Now, here again, there's no way that, this is not a déjà vu, okay? Obviously, this imitates, knocks off the pilot Vanishing point, and we will see I do have an original. Except it does have some some differences which are interesting. Now, in terms of the outside, and maybe we can bring out the original that I have. Here is an original pilot that I have, so you can tell that in terms of the basic design, we're talking about a click pen, very, very similar. Now, Majohn does have pens with the clip in the same way Pilot does, but they came out with this one, which is a clipless one. So that's one of the major differences, and I think it's innovation, because I don't believe the Pilot has a clipless one yet. Not yet, anyway. In terms of, as you can see, the hole there is pretty similar. Once we click them both open, the nibs look almost identical, although I got to tell you, there's no way you can compare this nib to that nib, and we'll get to that eventually in my review. There is some difference in terms of how this looks, but there are other Majohn pens that have the same look. This one's a little bit different. So, it does have the design is a little bit, it has this roller stop right here. This serves nothing more than serves as a roller stop, and sometimes it doesn't even do that. But it is different. It's clipless. So, a lot of people complain that this clip, although it doesn't really interfere, it just, mentally speaking, it just interferes with the pleasure. You kind of have it right there staring at you, and some people don't like it. Other people don't mind. Well, if you do mind, this one doesn't have one. So there you go. Is it comparable? We'll see in a minute. Okay, so let's continue with the Majohn V1, and we'll see what exactly this pen has to offer. Now, Moon Man is written there for some reason and not Majohn, but there again, we really don't know what's going on here. Is it Majohn, Moon Man? Is it the same company? I think it is, and there's some story about them changing their name, etc., which I don't want to get into, but there you go. So that's the outside. Very nice. It's a very nice mat. I got to tell you, I really like this mat. It's got good. I like the grip on it. I like the way it feels. I like the weight of this pen. Very, very nice. And it's really classy, and it's got some oomph to it, I got to tell you. Now, in terms of the interior mechanism, very similar to the original, except I'm going to show you a difference. And that difference is that you could see that, this mechanism needs to be lined up. Otherwise, let me just focus. It's on the outside, so if you're slightly out of that groove, it won't go in. So you got to make sure that the pen is lined in order to click it back in place. Whereas the original Vanishing point, you could see it descends before even the spring mechanism is in play. It's already inside that mechanism. So there, you just have to push it in, and there it is. It sits there, and then you can screw it in. So I think it's they would have some interest, I think, in making sure that this thing descends a little bit further down, so that when you do close, you're not guessing that mechanism springs in. Okay, so that's it. And in terms of the nib, it is a extra fine nib. The converter has some difficulty filling up to its fullest, although I got to tell you, I have the same difficulty with the original Vanishing point. Don't know why. But, we'll take a look at how this nib does, and especially comparing to my original Vanishing point, and especially comparing to the nib that I have in that particular Vanishing point. So there you have the inside, there you have the outside. I think it looks great. Feels great. The clicking mechanism works perfectly fine. In terms of build quality, I find it very, very nicely built. So it is a Vanishing point imitation, but on the other hand, it's got some original characteristics, and it's built properly. And let's see how it rates. But before we do that, we'll do a size comparison. Okay, I've got some samples here to show you, just to give you an idea. I kind of try to be as, in terms of variety, so that he catches pens that most of you have. This is the P136, the new Majohn. So you can see the size. It's slightly smaller. It's practically identical to my Vanishing point, my pilot. In terms of, it compares to the Enso matte black, slightly bigger because the mechanism is protruding, so it gives it a little more length. Here it is against a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero, not the Grande, the smaller sized one, and I think he compares, if not, is a little bit longer because of that clicking mechanism. And here it is compared to a Sailor Standard 1911. There you go. So that's the size comparison. So let's get to the writing sample. So the writing sample, first the ink. I've chosen this ink, Scribble fountain pen ink, Verde Mediterraneo. Very, very nice ink, gorgeous bottle. A little bit on the expensive side, but take a look at this bottle. I mean, it has an insert here so you can pile these bottles up. I've got a few of them, and they're really more a decorative piece than anything else. But I got to tell you, their ink is pretty special as well. It's got lots of sheen and shading. So I figured I'd use this, especially when I want to be able to compare the two pens, the original Pilot Vanishing Point with the nib that I have, along with this Majohn A1. Oh, by the way, I did refer to it as the V1. My apologies. I realized in looking over my tape that I made a mistake. It's actually the A1, as you well know. Okay, so that's the ink, and the journal that I'm using is a Tomoe River Wonderland 222, which, as you've known by now in my last videos, I'm sticking to this Tomoe River just so that we can be consistent with our reviews of the various pens. So let's click this thing open and see what it gives. Now, remember that this is an extra fine nib, which is something that I, right from the get-go, I just despise extra fine. I can live with a medium. I start to get interested in therapy in broad, and I really have my full dose when I'm writing with a stub. So bear with me, and if it hard starts, it's not its fault. It's because it's been sitting there for a while. So this is the Majohn, but as you can see, there's no hard start there. And it's the A1 matte black. And it's the clipless version. The nib is it's the Majohn nib, and it is in extra fine. In terms of line variation, non-existent. Is it wet? I guess you have to say it's wet for an extra fine. I mean, it writes. I think that this pen is meant to, to really write within those grids. And some people write very, very small, especially some of the Asian writing. So it fights fairly nicely, and if you stick to a very small type of handwriting, you could see that this pen has absolutely no problem keeping up. There is some feedback, but for this pen, an extra fine, perfectly normal, and it's an enjoyable feedback. Okay, it makes the writing experience very interesting, if you will. So I would say the nib is wet. Again, for an extra fine, it is constant, and it's fairly smooth for an extra fine. It's not penetrating the pen it's not scratchy, if you will. Okay, so that's the Majohn. Now, I want to compare it to my beautiful Pilot Vanishing Point. Now, this thing's got a 14 karat, although it's not gold color, it's rhodium, I believe, stub. Do you believe it, folks? I managed to put a stub in that little nib. So this is the Pilot Vanishing Point. Okay, and the nib is a 14 karat stub. What a difference, folks. What a difference. Take a look at that. I mean, this pen is just an absolute joy. Look at the gusher, and so even though you can keep it to, the smaller writing, I mean, you can see the flexibility on this nib is incredible, okay? In fact, it's so flexible I'm losing control over it with my shaky hands, okay? But it's just buttery smooth. It just takes off on its own. I mean, really, really nice. So, Majohn, I think you have a nice product with that A1, but you can't rival the original, okay? It just can't be rivaled. Now, let's go back and do a rating of the Majohn A1. So my rating, now the design, I got to say that because of the way they've kind of modified the original design, I'm going to give it a 7.9. I just can't give it an 8 because it's not a totally original design. Okay, but 7.9 for effort. Build quality, I really like the build quality of this pen. I think that filling mechanism and that the mechanism inside should be modified slightly, as I mentioned. But other than that, I would give this thing a 9.5. And had it not been for that little quirk in that filling mechanism, I would give it 10 on 10. It's just an absolutely well-built pen. The nib, I've seen better. I'm not going to give this thing anything more than an 8.2. In terms of value, I forget what I paid for this pen, but I think it's probably in and around $50 Canadian, and I can't give it a 10 on 10. I think it's fairly expensive at that price, so I'm going to give it a 5 on 10 for value. Go to, no folks, 5 on 10. I can't say that I will be using this pen with that nib. It just doesn't excite me, which is a pity. But if I can fit my Pilot Vanishing Point, and I haven't done it, and I don't want to do it here, but if I can, you know what? I might very well be tempted. Well, you know what, folks? Let's see if it does. I mean, why not? Let's do a live experiment and see if I can fit in the original. I'm having some problems here tightening it up. But let me see if it works. You know what, folks? It works. I could put the original in there. That's the original Vanishing Point in a Majohn shell. So, you know what? I may prefer this shell over the original because it's clipless. So there you have it. It fits. Now I'm hoping that I haven't destroyed the original mechanism. I don't think I have. And you can see it has the same problem in terms of sitting there on the outside instead of being in the inside. So it must be the spring that makes all the difference. Well, there you have it. Let's put in its original point. It's a pleasure to write with this pen just because it feels very, very nice. There you have it. I hope you've enjoyed let me sign off here and say to you, please subscribe. If you have any comments, please don't hesitate. I hope I've entertained you. I hope I've informed you. And stay tuned for the next review. Thank you.